Hey there everyone, I am Chris. This is Simply Classic, and today we are going to do something a little bit different. We are going to make the Vespera bag by RLR Creations. Now that bag has a pouch and a bag included in the pattern. So today we're going to do the pouch. We're going to use half leather and half cotton, and we're going to do it 100% on the domestic machine. So we're going to start by going over pattern pieces. We're going to start by going over pattern pieces. Here we have our right front side. This is pattern piece Q. And the actual piece has got this little cutout here. You definitely want to make sure you do that. I'm using a cotton, and I put 2 layers of woven interfacing on the back, just to give it a little extra stability. So that's piece Q. We have piece R, and R is our left front side. I'm doing this out of leather. This is the color Cobalt, and I have no kind of interfacing or stabilizer on the back. We next have S, and S is our front pocket lining. I cut this out of the cotton, and I put 1 layer of interfacing on the back. And there's a little V at the top here, you can see. Make sure you cut that out as well. We then have T, and the rest of the pattern pieces are cut from measurements. So this is T, and T is our front and back panel. You're supposed to cut 1 main fabric and put some heavy interfacing on the back. Since I'm using leather, I'm just cutting the leather by itself. Then I have 3 main pieces, and they all have woven interfacing on the back, 1 layer. We then have our card pocket panel. This is for our credit card slots. So it's a nice big piece. I'm using a cotton for this, and then you're going to cut 1 piece of heavy interfacing. So I'm actually using a Decaville light here, and we're going to put that on after we fold these slots. So that's piece U. V is our interior back slip pocket. You cut 2 of your main fabrics. So I have 2 pieces of cotton, but only 1 has interfacing on the back. The other one does not have anything. Piece W is our interior front slip pocket. I did 2 of my lining. Again, 1 has woven interfacing on the back, and the other one does not. It has nothing. We then have our back zipper pocket top. This is piece X. I used the cotton with no interfacing or anything on the back. We then have our back zipper pocket bottom piece, piece Y. Again, cotton and no interfacing on the back. The next piece is piece Z. This is the back zipper pocket facing. Did it out of the cotton, and I do have some woven fused 2 on the back. From there, we have our zipper, or our connector tabs. And this is just a tiny little piece that we're going to cut and use this to attach our wristlet. It is cotton, and there's no interfacing on the back. We have our wristlet strap. I'm doing this out of leather. No kind of stabilizer or anything on the back of this. And we're going to actually construct this just a little bit different because we are using leather. And then the last thing is our zipper tabs, and our zipper tabs are out of our cotton. There's no interfacing on the back, and we have 2 of these. For hardware, you're going to need a couple of number 5 zippers. You're also going to need a small 1/2-inch D-ring. You're going to need swivel clasps and a couple of zipper pulls. Okay, let's get stitching. Once you have your strap connector completed, go ahead and take your D-ring, slip it on. You're going to fold it in half, meeting the short edges, and now we're going to stitch as close as we can across the end of the D-ring. So I've moved my needle over, I put my zipper foot on, and I'm just going to get as close as I can, put my needle in, and then stitch across and back stitch. Now that we have our D-ring connector completed, we're going to set it aside for just a minute and we're going to work on our wristlet strap. Now, as I mentioned, we're going to do this wristlet strap just slightly different because we are working with leather here, working this beautiful cobalt color. And what I want to do is to draw a line down the center of this piece. So we're just going to take my ruler and go right down the center. We want to fold the long edges into the center, and then we want to fold again. Now, if your machine does not like double-sided tape, and my domestic machine does not, I'm just going to use clips to clip this down to hold it while I fold the other side as well, and then we'll clip it together. When you fold this, you want to leave a little space between the folds so that when you fold it again, it won't buckle. Your leather will have a place to fold too. So if you see here how there's a space between, you can actually see the line. As we fold this, the edges will now have a space to turn to and it won't buckle or get distorted. So I'm just going to fold this in half and then reclip. And it should be nice and even. Okay, from here, you want to make sure you use your Teflon foot. We're going to top stitch down this folded edge first to close it, and then we're going to top stitch down the other edge as well. So now with the handle top stitched, I'm going to just make sure that one short edge, doesn't matter which one, I have at least one of them that's nice and even. I'm going to take my swivel clasp, place it on the strap connector. I'm going to take the end that I mean both ends could be straight. Let me go ahead and straighten this one up just to make it nice. I'm going to place that down, and then with my swivel clasp towards the end here, go ahead and bring this up. Okay, and that will be my wristlet. Now, I'm going to just use a rivet here. I'm not going to sew because we now have several layers of leather here, and my domestic machine will not go through that. So I'm just going to go ahead and punch a hole and place a rivet. Now with our wristlet strap and our connector complete, we're going to set these aside and we're going to move on to the front. So you're going to take your right front panel piece and you're going to draw a line over on this side here. And she gives you the measurement of that line in the pattern. Then you're going to take the other side that has the notch, and you're going to flip it over and measure that same amount, and then you're going to fold this over and press. Now, before I connect these two pieces, I'm going to cut off this little dog ear here just to make sure I can line my bottoms up correctly. You're going to place this piece on top, lining up the edge, the folded edge, with the line you drew. And as you do that, everything should match up correctly. Now, we can't pin, you could pin this, but I cannot because I have leather. So I can do a couple things here. I can use some double-sided tape along this edge, which my machine does not like, or I could go ahead and just hold it and try to get it in there, which is what I am going to attempt to do. I will clip it here at the bottom to help me hold it, and I'm going to stitch up 1/8 of an inch to here. Once I reach this little edge, I'm going to turn and I'm going to stitch up to secure that in place. Now we have that sewn together, we're going to take our pattern piece S, we're going to lay this on top, we're going to clip it along this top edge, and we're going to stitch using a 1/2 inch seam allowance. You're going to stitch down in the V. So as you stitch this, you're going to stitch across, down the V, back up, and then back across. You want to make sure you back stitch here a little bit in the V to hold it nice and secure for when we turn it. As a hint to help me determine exactly where I need to make my turns, I drew in the 1/2 inch seam allowance on this lining piece. So now I know exactly where to turn to come down to the V point. I know where to turn at the V point, and then when I come back up, where to make this final turn. That's going to really help, especially when you get down to this V, because otherwise it's hard to know exactly as you're sewing down where to stop. So as I put my ruler along this edge and along this edge, the 1/2 inch, and just drew, and then where those lines intersect is your 1/2 inch point that you need to sew to. now that we're completed, I went ahead and I cut my seam allowances back to 1/4 inch. So I just cut all the way around. I also cut down into my V. I went all the way to my stitch line. From here, you're going to go ahead and turn the bag, or turn this front, making sure these corners are poked out real nice. Once you trim back your seam allowance, you also need to trim right along that stitch line to get that nice and flat. Otherwise, when you go to turn this, you're gonna have too much bulk there and it's not gonna lay flat. So just stick your finger in and turn it. And once you do, we can go ahead and clip the top. Now, before I continue, I am going to take this to my iron and I'm going to iron it down. I obviously don't want to do it from this right side with the leather up. I'm going to do it from the wrong side to make sure everything lays nice and flat. And then we will go to the machine and we will top stitch. I have a little tacking stitch that I can do when I get in the corners, and that's what I'm doing on my machine, is just doing that extra little tack there, just so I don't have any problems with any stitches coming out or the machine skipping stitches. If you don't have that, it is not a problem. It's just a little something extra that my machine has. So we now have our front pocket completed. We're going to take our one of our main body pieces. This is pattern piece T, and we're going to lay the pocket piece right on top, making sure that our bottoms and sides align. We're going to clip it. And then we're going to go ahead and stitch it on. Now that the pocket is basted onto the front of the bag, we're going to go back and get our strap connector that we made in the first step. She gives us a measurement in the pattern as far as how far down to come. We're going to put the edge of the strap connector along the edge of the fabric. She also gives us another measurement to measure in so that we know exactly where to line up our finished edge of our strap connector to that line that she told us to. So I'm going to clip this and then go to the machine and stitch that on. Our strap connector is connected. The front of the bag is complete. We're going to move on to the back. We're going to work on the zipper pocket. So take your pattern piece X, lay it right side up. Take one of your zippers, and we're going to lay it with the zipper teeth up on top of the pattern piece, on top of the piece X, and we're going to either clip or pin it. We're going to stitch right across this edge using a 1/4 inch seam allowance. The zipper sewn on, we want to turn the pocket so the zipper teeth are laying flat on the back, and we're going to top stitch that zipper tape down. Now that that zipper tape is stitched down, we're going to take pattern piece Y and we're going to lay it right side up. We're going to take our zipper, the wrong side of the zipper again, and lay it along the right side of this pocket piece. Go ahead and throw a few clips. We're going to stitch, and then we're going to turn the pocket out so the zipper is laying flat, and top stitch like we did for this side. So we have our zipper pocket completed, and you see that there is one edge that's longer than the other. What's going to happen is that once we attach this zipper, this back edge is going to fold down and it's going to meet the bottom edge. And this is the part of our zipper that will show through. So I'm going to add a pole. And depending on which way you want your pole or your pocket to close is going to depend on where you put the pole. I like my pockets to close to the left. So I'm going to start over here on my right side and add the pole so that when it closes to the left. If you want it opposite, you're just going to go ahead and add it on the opposite end. We're going to set this zipper pocket aside for just a moment, and we're going to go ahead and make the hole so that our zipper pocket shows through on the back. Now I'm going to use this piece of leather for that. Therefore, I'm not going to use piece Z to create the zipper opening. However, if you were going to do that, if you were not going to use leather, if you're going to use a cotton, what you would do is take one of your panel piece T pieces. So I'm going to move this leather aside for just a moment. And you would line this piece up centered on the back of your main piece. Now, there's some measurements given in the pattern where you need to drop down, draw a line, drop down again, draw another line, connect the line to make a great big huge rectangle. You would then sew along the rectangle edge and then cut out the middle of it to take this piece and push it through the opening. Because I'm not going to be using the cotton, instead, all I'm going to do is on this leather, I'm going to turn this around, and I'm going to the back of this leather, I'm going to make those same measurements and draw the lines. Just as if this was the zipper pocket or the Z piece. So I'm going to start out by drawing a line across. I'm going to come down, draw another line, and again, these measurements are given in the pattern. In the end, we have our specific length. We need our rectangle. So I'm going to mark my center because I want to make sure I know where the center of this is. I'm going to make just a little notch here. And then from this center point, I'm also going to measure over to the right and to the left. So let me mark where that center point is. And then I will measure over from there to complete my box on this side and on this side. Okay, so now I have a rectangle. And I'm just going to go to my cutting table. I'm going to use my rotary cutter and my ruler to cut that box out. Again, because this is leather, a non-fraying fabric, I'm not going to worry about taking that any further. I'm just going to install the zipper into that hole. So I've cut the hole in the leather. See it here. And we want to now center our zipper in that hole. Now this is going to be a little tricky because my machine does not like double-sided tape, and I'm going to want to top stitch around this, but it's really hard to know exactly how to hold it. So I'm going to use some sew-tight magnets. This is something that I have recently discovered. If you're a quilter, you probably know about these, but basically they're just magnets that you can put onto the bag and it holds it all in place. So I'm going to put a couple down here. And that's just going to help me. Now, as I stitch around this zipper, I am going to have to be careful because this could still move. And I certainly don't want that to happen. So I'm just going to take my time and top stitch 1/8 of an inch all the way around this box. So now I have an 1/8 of an inch stitched all the way around, so the zipper is attached. I can go ahead and remove my magnets. And you want to turn this over and bring your top pocket down to your bottom. Now, I put my pocket in backwards. I have my zipper pull closing to the right instead of the left. And when I put my pull on, I wanted it to close to the left. So I'm not going to redo it. All I'm going to do is my zipper pocket's going to be a little bit smaller than what the pattern says. I'm going to go ahead and just cut off the excess. You won't have excess if you do it right. If you do it like me, you will. And like I said, my zipper pocket just won't be as deep, and that will be okay. So she suggests going ahead and folding these pocket pieces up about 1/2 inch. And basically what you're doing is creating your seam allowance. We're going to keep this bottom open so that when we turn, we'll be able to turn it through this zipper pocket. So I'm going to just clip these. And then from here, we're going to stitch the pocket closed just on the sides. So to do that, the easiest way to do that is to turn this piece back over so it's right side up, pull this to the side, your front to the side, and stitch down. And then come over here and do the same thing, pull this to the side and stitch down. So the zipper pocket on the back is now completed. I went ahead and pressed these little edges down, and the bottom of my pocket is open. Sides are stitched and they are good to go. If you need to, go ahead and trim back part of your pocket. You certainly don't want it in your seam allowance. You can do that. And then we're going to set this aside and move on to the interior. Let's move on to the lining, and we're going to start with the credit card slots. So in the pattern, you're given measurements to make starting at the bottom. And you're going to draw a line, and then you're going to crease your credit card slots wrong sides together along each of those lines, okay? You're going to have four instances where you fold this wrong sides together. Then the very last measurement that she gives you, you're going to fold that one right sides together and you're going to press. So from here, we're going to ignore this press for just a moment, and all of these here, these 4 creases, we're going to top stitch at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. we're going to create our credit card slots. So we're going to start from the bottom, and the bottom is the smallest portion that you have here between your stitched edge and your raw edge, okay? This is obviously a lot larger. We're going to fold all of this down and bring the second stitched edge up to the top. We're going to place the ruler, and we want to bring this folded edge that we top stitched up to the ruler, which is a 1/2 inch down from that seam, from that stitched seam. So we're going to do that, and we're going to put a couple of clips, one on each side. Okay, we're going to bring the next fold up so we can see it. We're going to place the ruler, and we're going to do exactly the same thing. We're going to put this seam right up against the ruler. And then we have one more. Take this seam and place this right up against that ruler. Now, when I clip this one, I don't want to clip this back piece to it. Just going to kind of pull this up and clip here and clip over here. And the reason why is because now when I pull this over, I want to be able to pull this back piece up and press these folds nice and flat. So now that these are pressed nice and flat, I'm going to turn this over, and one more time I'm going to line my ruler up, but this time I'm going to line it up against the seam that is folded right sides together. So I can see that seam right there. I'm going to take the ruler and line up my 1/2 inch line on it. And then I'm going to match this edge right up to it. Just like that. Okay, so now I have one more edge right here to press. And I don't know if you can see, but most of the edges are equal distance apart, but this edge and this edge down here are almost exactly the same, at the same level. And it's just due to the way we folded everything. So go ahead and press that. So now that this is fused, I can actually pick this up and these don't come apart, okay? We're going to find the center by folding this in half, and I'm going to find the center at the top and the bottom. So just fold it in half and cut a little notch, and do the same thing at the top. And we want to draw a line down the center and mark it because we want to divide these slots. So take your ruler, lay it on your notches, and then go ahead and mark. Now I'm using a Soline Air Erase pen. And what I'm going to do is sew up, and I'm going to turn around and sew back down to give it a little extra stability. I'm only going to sew to this line, okay? So I'm only going to sew to the point where the decaville ends. So I can feel where that is. If you're not 100% sure, you can certainly mark it. But for me, it's at the very top slot. Okay, so there's your top slot. I'm just going to sew all the way up to that point. So now these are stitched. You can see here, stitched all the way down. We're going to take this top part and we're going to flip it all the way down to the bottom. Now before we're going to actually stitch the sides, we're going to fold this up a 1/2 inch. I'm going to start on this side and fold it up over my decoville because that's going to give me a nice crisp edge. And do the same thing on this side. And then once I know where this is folded over, I'm going to flip the piece over. I'm going to fold the other edge up to it. And once we stitch this, we're going to top stitch this whole pocket closed. So you can take this to the iron, which I'm going to do, to press this seam down really nice so that after we turn it, it's going to be super easy to top stitch it closed. So press it down and then let's go ahead and stitch the sides. So now that this is stitched on the sides, I'm going to turn it and I'm going to fold this seam allowance over right on the stitch line. And then I'm going to put my thumb inside so that I can hold it down with my thumb and my finger. From here, I'm just going to turn this and then use my point turner to poke out that corner. And you can see, even without using my point turner, how nice and perfect that side is. So there's no need to clip. All you have to do is make sure that you fold it right along your seam allowance, or right along your stitching. I should say, not your seam allowance. And then go ahead and turn it. So from here, you can go ahead and press it really good, which I'm going to do. And then I'm going to clip this bottom that we already pressed, and we'll stitch. We're going to top stitch that closed. I've pressed the piece, but actually you don't want to top stitch that yet. We're going to stitch it as we stitch it onto our back lining piece. So take another one of your pocket piece T pieces. We're going to fold this in half. And we're going to find the center. From the bottom of this piece, we are going to measure up and center this credit card slot right on the piece. So let's see, it's right here. And I want to center. Now you can use your Sew Tight magnets again to hold this in place, or you can use pins, whatever works. I'm going to go ahead and use these magnets. So now we're going to stitch around this pocket. Now, the pattern says to go ahead and stitch the top as well. I'm going to leave the top open because I think it's going to make a nice little slip pocket. just behind the credit card slots. And it's fully lined, so I think that's just a really great solution. So I'm just going to stitch around these edges here. So we now have our credit card slots done, and you want to go ahead and test them out and make sure that they work okay. And they look fantastic. So go ahead and set this piece of lining aside. So now we're going to move on to the slip pocket for the other side. So you're going to take your 2 W pieces, which is your interior slip pocket. You're going to put them right sides together, and you're going to clip the top. We're going to stitch the top, and then we'll come back. So now that this is stitched, we are going to turn, we're going to open up this pocket, and we're going to press the seam allowance. You see it naturally wants to go on the side without the interfacing. We're going to go ahead and press that open. Once that seam allowance is pressed open, go ahead and fold the pocket piece so that the 2 bottom edges are meeting. You can go ahead and press this top open like this. We're going to clip it, and then we're going to top stitch along the top edge. So now that this is stitched, I have a nice top stitch up here. I'm going to go back to my credit card slot piece. I'm going to lay this pocket on top of it, so it's covering up the credit card slots. We're going to clip, and then from here we're going to stitch all the way around this piece to go ahead and stitch this pocket on. So we now have this piece completed, and you will see that you have like secret credit card slots in there and a slip pocket. Pretty cool. So from here we're going to work on the front lining piece. We're going to take our W pieces, We have one with interfacing, one without. We're going to put them right sides together, and we're going to do exactly what we just did for the other pocket. We're going to stitch right along the top, and then we're going to turn, press the seam allowance towards the non-interface piece. We will put it wrong sides together and top stitch the very top edge. Okay, so that pocket's completed. We're going to take our last T-piece that we have. We're going to fold it in half to find the center. And we're going to lay the pocket piece right on top. Let's go ahead and clip it. Just matching up all the raw edges. And then we're going to divide this pocket in half. So where you made your center marks, go ahead and grab your ruler, and we're going to line it up on those center marks and draw a line. So from here, we're going to stitch down, around, up and down, and then back around, and go ahead and get this pocket piece on. So now we have the pocket piece completed. We are now going to work on the zipper since all of our parts and pieces are completed. So you want to make sure you put your pull on the zipper if you're using Zipper by the Yard like I am. Also, you're going to take your zipper tabs and you're going to fold the very short edges over 1/4 inch and you're going to press. Then you're going to fold the whole thing in half and press again. You're going to do that for both tabs. If you're using a regular dressmaker zipper, you'll have a stop at the end of your zipper, and you're going to want to put the raw edge up just above that stop. Since I don't have a stop, I'm just going to put it about 1/4 inch above the edge of my zipper. Now I had to cut my zipper tabs a little bit larger because my zipper is a handbag zipper, which is a number 5, which is wider. your zipper tabs will be narrower if you're using a dressmaker zipper. So from here, I'm going to stitch right along the fold. I have the teeth up. I have my zipper tab facing down on top of the teeth, and I'm just going to stitch right along that 1/4 of an inch fold. So now that it's sewn, I'm going to remove my clip, and I'm just going to fold the zipper tab right along that previously ironed fold, and then fold the zipper tab in half along my halfway fold. I'm going to match the edges of the 1/4 inch folds so that they're lined up. I'll go ahead and put a clip and another clip, and we're going to top stitch from the front of the zipper. And when I top stitch, I want to make sure I grab this bottom piece. Okay, so top stitch about 1/8 of an inch in, and you should be fine. So now I have this part completed, and I did cut, like I said, my zipper tabs a little bit bigger, so I'm just going to trim off the extra so that it's even with my zipper tape. So from here, we are going to measure from our stitch line, not from the edge of the tab, but from the stitch line itself. We're going to measure on the zipper tab, measurement that we're given in the pattern. And we're going to make a mark. Now, make sure that at this point your zipper pull is on if you're doing zipper by the yard. I'm going to take my other tab and I'm going to line it up on that line I just drew. I'm going to clip and then from here I'm going to stitch on that fold, that 1/4 inch fold, just like I did for this other side. Now that that's on, we're going to repeat. We're just going to open this up. We're going to make sure that our folded edges meet on the sides. And then we're going to go ahead and top stitch and catch the bottom underneath. Once that is sewn on, I'll go ahead and cut this even with the zipper tape. And now the zipper is completed. So from here, we're going to put the bag together. So take your front piece that we finished in step 1, and you're going to place your zipper right side down on top of the piece. Go ahead and clip it. And you can baste this in place, or you can lay your lining on top of this and you can stitch it all at once, whatever you're most comfortable with. Your tabs will go to the end. So go ahead, and if you want to do it all together, you can. If not, like I said, baste and then come back and then take your pocket with the your lining with the divided pocket, and we're going to place it right on top, right sides together, with that zipper sandwiched right in between. We're going to clip. And then we're going to stitch this using a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Now, I like to usually stitch with the back of the zipper facing up. So I'm going to make sure I do that, and I'm going to make sure I pull my pole all the way to the other side to start. So go ahead and stitch. So now you want to go ahead and open this up, pull your front panel away from the zipper, leave your lining open, and we're going to go ahead and top stitch along the zipper edge. So now we have this top stitched, we're just going to turn it over and press the lining down. Once that's completed, go ahead and get your other main piece. We're going to go ahead and